Hi guys, my name is Jacques. I'm the National Cyber Defense Specialist for Microsoft in the Canadian region. Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about and showcase you about simulation hacking. What is the good, the bad, and ugly about it? Can we utilize it? Is it something that we can use in an environment? Should we only use it or conduct it when we want to test something that is not in a production environment? Or is there any value in doing it? Should we only get a real pen testing organization to do certain things? Okay, so let me go and explain a little bit about what is simulation hacking. But before I continue, I just need to make sure everybody understands. I'm fully I have autism, so if I do say something to offend you, I do apologize in advance. Sometimes with the way I communicate, I sometimes have no filter. So I just want to let you know that I am autistic. So yeah, let's keep going. Okay, let's get back to it. So I've been doing it for a number of years, and we especially go on GitHub. We go and see what type of simulation programs are there and is available. We play with them, and we can sometimes see, okay, what software is actually doing what it says it is, and what software out there is trying to sell you a service. Okay, and I will explain why that software is there. Okay, so let's get right into it. But before we understand what is simulation hacking, we first need to go and have a little bit of a look how Windows operate, how the actual operating system operate, because that will really start to make sense once you get into certain things. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and just explain a little bit here. Windows work in a complete isolation of virtualization sandboxing. Okay, so you can kind of say we fake it. Okay, so you've got your applications on the one side, you've got your Windows platform, you've got your kernel running, and then obviously you've got on the right hand side, you've got all your applications running, which is, it could be Adobe, it could be WinRAR, WinZip, whatever it is. We don't care what it is. And when you see that running, you can sometimes see that certain applications, when you do the testing or when you want to do the hacking, you don't get the result you're looking for. Okay, now that's also because we have different builds. Like remember when we had build 1803, 1809, and then we went to 1903 and 1909, and then we went over to 2004 H2 build. So every time there's a new build, there's a new functionality or isolation we basically built in there. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. Every time we do have a new build, you might find something has changed dramatically. Okay, the hack that you tested or did work on, let's say for instance build 1909 works, or you put a certain functionality into it, and then suddenly you update your machines to 2004, and Defender completely stopped that particular hacking from happening. And that's what we as Microsoft are doing. We keep evolving the OS. Okay, we get about 8 trillion signals a day in all our data centers around the world. And when we get that signals, we need to really go deep into it to see what it is. What is the changing functionality there? Once we found out what that is, we will then rebuild it and repackage it, and there will be changes. Okay, obviously there's a big system that goes in the back end where we test it through a number of months before we just send it out to enterprise. But it's clearly stated that Microsoft has made a commitment to protect you against those mitigations. Okay, so as you understand how the isolation is working, this particular format that I show here has been there for quite some time. However, we basically fake everything in the back end. Okay, so what do you mean by faking it in the back end? Okay, so let's have a look. If you look at dynamic general imaging, okay, and if you run Windows just as normal vanilla, and you've got your host files like your LSAS and any DLL files and so forth, the green means that is our actual file. Let's say that is the LSAS file, okay. And the else says we require it in multiple software that you're running. Let's say like a SAP program or Dynamics or whatever like that. Even if it's a third-party program, we will actually create a host file, and we'll make a host file 2, 3, and 4. So that will mean it's linked to a certain file, okay? It's not the actual file. So sometimes when a hacker think they hook into an actual file or to get that particular passwords, they're actually hooking into a dummy file, okay? So that passwords, it's not there, okay? But there's a little bit of an if as well, okay? It also depends how the third-party organization or the organization that built it is actually allowing it to do, okay? And that's where we're going to start talking a little bit about, your E3 type of licensing, where it is using a different method to protect and to stop. But we will get there, okay? Then you will see in our smart memory, you will see we used to have, let's say, food or DLL, and we had 2 physical ones, okay? So we've got we've got a traditional VM1, and we had the actual host version. In 2004, what we actually did was we built it in. So now the full .dll is actually there, but it is both of them in one file. So the file and the actual fake in the sandboxing mode is there. So when a hacker is trying to write a code now, is he getting the right information, or are we actually giving him information which is in the sandbox environment? Okay, that's a little bit of our secret sauce, where we don't gonna really wrap deep into it, because that's kind of how we differentiate from our competitors. One thing that we have that nobody else have in the world is we have Windows. It's our operating system. We understand how it works. We understand how our security works in it, and we build our threat protection and our big security play around the OS, okay? That will be obviously for your endpoint, and that will be for server as well, okay? So, and obviously when you're connecting to Azure, okay? Okay, so now that we have a little bit of a wrap, how it basically looks like and how, Windows operate. From here on, we can go slightly a little deeper and talk a little bit about what simulation hacking is out there. Now, I'm going to pop up a few websites. We can go and have a look into some organizations that I basically use and why I use them. And then and we'll conduct a few hacks, 1 or 2 hacks, and then let's go and see what happens. Okay. Also something that I want to just mention here, in this particular system, we also built an operating system very much like the MITRE ATT&CK framework system. So if something happens, we can let you know exactly where that hack is happening, okay? So if you have an attacker that's busy, doing the initial access, the code execution, credential theft, in the back end, the operating system is kind of built to stop, that mitigations. If you run Defender with our security platform, our EDR platform, it's going to basically stop the attacks, okay, from happening. But it's also going to tell you how it's working, okay, purely because we have a very big global presence in the cloud form, and that's why we can do it. You must understand here the scale we're talking about here. We have 140. They keep getting more, but we've got about 140 data centers around the world. That is millions of processing power available. So if we found something, okay, it's a new code, it instantly goes into that pool and it gets running in a sandbox mode, and we can see what's in that code that it should not be, and then actually help you. So what will happen is it will create the file, and when we generate that file, let's say it's a simulation hacking file or the file, we'll take that file, we'll send it up, we'll get the information, we send it back again, and you get your result. Okay, and that's basically how we do our things, and that's why it's so quick and fast. Okay, Now, where does this play in a simulation world? When you play with simulation hacking, you have to be very careful what you do and what is the outcome. Sit down with your team and conduct what you want to do, okay? And you need to go and sit down and say, what do we want to test, okay? Because you can run into so much different avenues when you start playing around where it's not making sense. Sometimes if you get your answer, and you might maybe get to the answer you're looking for, okay? When you sit down with your team, make sure it's very clear you want to do and focus on one thing. So let's say, for instance, let's going to go and focus on credentials. Can we get credentials from our machines? Okay, can we get it by dumping it? Can we get it by maybe doing, extraction of it? Now, when you start to play with like Mimikatz and stuff like that, almost any program will catch it. Even if you start to play around with invoke with Mimikatz, like invoke means is when you almost use a program that's running in memory, and then you use Mimikatz to pull a certain file out, or the password file out, and then you can use it to to get the actual password. Okay. Now, this is where your operating system is playing a very big role. If you're going to play around with, or we're going to play with that, with credential harvesting, you need to make sure that your license or that your other layer is enabled, which is credential guard. You want credential guard to be enabled. Otherwise, this is not going to work. Okay? You might check it out and do your simulation hacking, or get a hacker to do certain things, and then which you obviously ask to do. Then they will get sometimes the password. Because if credential guard is not enabled, it means your password is not going into the TPM processor. Okay, so let's just have a little bit of a look what I'm talking about. So when I'm going to have a look into our system, and we go over here, and we're looking at credential guard. Just mind the spelling there. Okay, so basically credential guard as in Windows Defender as a tool that enables virtualization. Okay, so the tool goes in, it sits in a memory, and it sits in a TPM processor. And once you type in your passwords, it will inject into that password system. So if you actually go into your Windows system and you type in Create Manager, you will see there's two different credentials there. Okay, let me just make it a bit more clear, more clean. Okay, so you'll see there's web credentials, and it is Windows credentials. Okay, your web credentials, you will see websites. Okay, so every time you go into a website, you type in a password, your information is going to be recorded over here. If you run it on Edge. Okay, different when you run it on Chrome or Firefox and so forth. They keep it in their own type of vault. Okay, Windows credentials is separate, okay, from the web, physically in the operating system. So what you will see here is if I log into accounts and stuff like that, it will actually go in and take that code and protect against it. Okay, and that's what you want to look in for. You want to lock that credentials into the TPM processor, because you don't want them to actually, or any hacker to retrieve that information. And that's very key here, okay? This is your E3 license from a Microsoft perspective, Windows Enterprise, okay? And you want to basically go and check that that functionality is enabled. Because if you're going to go and play around in the MITRE framework, and you're going to play around by trying to grab the password or extract the password, if it happens, then it means it's not enabled. If it doesn't happen and the password says, sorry, you cannot access it, then you kind of know that you are protected against it. Another way, just to check if you actually have it enabled, you can go in and type in run, and then type in ms info MS info 32, which will bring up your system state. I'll just bring this across for you. So as you see in the system state, what you want to look is under the item and values, you're basically going to want to check from a DMA downwards. Okay, what is enabled here? Because that is going to give you a pretty clear picture of what your IT has developed and enabled. So as you can see over here, Credential Guard is running on a virtualized base service running, and we're running it in the security is configured for Credential Guard. Okay, we're not going to go into the rest of all of these functionalities over here because then we're going slightly. It's all part of simulation hacking, but we only have so many. So we only have so many times. So I just want to focus on one thing for now. So once these are enabled and it's running, you can then go in and then try to conduct a hack and see if it is enabled. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into another machine. We're going to go and check if Credential Guard is running. If it's not running, we're going to actually enable it. We're going to run it and get it to work. And then we're going to do the credential hack. And then you will see what I'm trying to say about it. Okay, so let's move over to more of a demo. Okay, I don't really like doing presentations. It's pretty boring for me, but we all need to do it sometimes, right? Okay. I just want to connect to the system. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's go and have a look in our system. This is a physical machine that's running. Let's go and have a look. If you type in run, you type in info 32. Sorry, MS info 32. What do we actually see? Okay. Okay, we do see Credential Guard is turned on. However, we don't see Credential Guard is enforced. So there's only one running. We want to go a little bit more deeper into the credential system. Okay. So if you enable it by running a GPU policy, or you enable it by running Intune, there's another way to make sure. Let's say, for instance, you do run it and something is not working. You want to make sure you can get it to work. You can actually go and do this. Go here, type in, it's called DG, it's Credential Guard, DG Toolkit. I think it was 9.4 was the latest one, I think. Yeah, there we go. Right, there we go. Yeah, there we go. DG readiness. Okay. So obviously that's going to be in our system. So we click over here, double click there, just extract that. Extract all of it. What I like to do is I like to just take that and copy it to my C drive. Just makes things a little bit more cleaner and clear. There we go. Now what we want to do is we want to navigate to that system. Okay, so we want to run DG. And then what you want to do is you can just run it clear, like plain text, and you can say run. And it's going to basically tell you what is your system capable? What is it actually running at the moment? So this will give you a little bit of a tool to also see, do you want to enable HVCI? Do you want to enable Credential Guard? And so forth, okay? So once you go in and you say, I want to basically go in, I want to say if the system is capable of running it. So you will press that, and it says capable, run it, say run, and there we go. And basically it's going to do it, it's going to run and it's going to write stuff into the TPM processor, okay, or the variants that you require for your system to take effect. Now it's going to say rebooting system. Now, as soon as I'm going to reboot the system, obviously we won't be able to, go further. It's going to take about a minute or two, so I'm not going to reboot it. However, what we're going to do is, I'm trying to just show you is, once you go and do a hack, you need to make sure that you prep it correctly, okay? A simulation hack. Each section of your MITRE ATT&CK framework requires maybe something like this to do, okay? And that's what you need to go and check out. Because sometimes there's a lot of fake programs out there that just run stuff and they say, we've just run 20 tests on your machine, and technically with the software that you've enabled or the security that you've enabled, we bypassed 17 of them and only caught 3 of them, okay? And then when you actually go and look into the system, things doesn't make sense, right? So that's what we see a lot, okay? So if you go hands-on into a certain thing, you want to make sure that your team and yourself are following the right steps to get to that particular system. Make sure you read the documentation, what you need, what you require to do. Like, for instance, this is credentials. Everything to credentials, we need to make sure that we're protecting everything about credentials. This is the under layer of the operating system, okay? Sometimes if you do actually run, if you have a high build, like a build 2004 in Windows, and you run and you don't have this enabled, sometimes when you run a certain program or a hack, it will actually stop it. It also depends how you penetrate that software or how you penetrate that particular system. If you can run Mimikatz, we're going to catch you. But if you maybe run invoke Mimikatz in another software backend, or we might not catch you, okay? But then you need to go and check why. And this is the why. Why is it not in it? So you want to enable it in this way, so if everything that's password protected is in your TPM processor. That's the key here, okay? It's almost like having MFA, okay? Okay, so now that we've run that, which is fantastic, let's go and have a little bit of a deeper section now. Let's go and have a look into what type of software can we use to conduct, hacking or simulation hacking, okay? So a tool I love using, GitHub, is Atomic Red Canary. Atomic Red Canary is, so I won't say, you get yourself certified on it when you run it. So Atomic Red Canary is a company that is but basically run everything in a MITRE ATT&CK framework. Okay, they've got all the instructions that you require, the framework they are running, everything is in here. So you can just go in, install it, and make sure there's a few things you need to do for Atomic Red Canary to actually work perfectly. Okay, first you want to do is before you even start want to run this, is make sure your software will not stop it. Okay, because it's going to install, if I'm a bunch of files that looks like it's going to, infect your machine. So there's the actual directory, Atomic Red Team, and if you go into it and you go into Atomic, there's all the files, all the MITRE ATT&CK at T1037. We're going to run T1003, which is for credentials. But you see, they've got every little thing you require to test your system, okay? And each one of them requires something. So that's what I'm going to show you guys as well. Okay. So once you install it and you run it, one thing you want to make sure is you want to set your system so it actually can get it. So you want to go set execution policy to unrestricted. Don't run force, because then it's obviously gonna, if you're gonna run force, look at my spelling there, force, then everything you're gonna run in this machine later stadium, unless this is like a dim environment, you're gonna throw it away, you can do it. You want to set your execution policy. Then second you want to do is, you want to then go in install the software, make sure it's working perfectly. You'll see it will run the scripts, everything is working. Then you can start to learn their language of how they use the program. Okay, so once that is all set and sorted, you probably can run a little bit into problems with Defender if you run it, or if you run your own program. So if we run Defender, just make sure you go into security, you go into your section over here, you go down to managed files, and you go into add exclusions, and you would like to add the actual Atomic Red Team folder in there, the exclusion. It means it's now if the hacker is actually on, running on the system. But remember, your security or EDR system, whatever you're running to protect you, is also running on the system. So in my case, I'm running our MDE threat protection. So in our case, what I had to do was I had to go in and actually go in my system, go down to where was this now? Auto folder exclusions, and actually put it in as well as Atomic Red Canary. So it will say everything that's running in C in Atomic Red Canary, just allow it to run. And the other program I'm actually using is Purple Sharp, and I will get to that a little bit later, because they're two different systems. They're two different ways of simulation hacking. Atomic Red Canary, you run from the system using certain XML files. Purple Sharp use basically the .NET framework, which is a different way. Sometimes you can get the same result, but you want to do it in different ways, right? Using a software or using XML file. It depends what you want to do. Okay, so once you've got that set, let's see how actually Atomic Red Canary works, or how this hack will basically conduct. Okay, so first of all, you want to speak to your team to say, listen, we're going to run this on the machine. So record the name of the machine. Maybe let's say it's security process 1, or security test 1 machine image, or whatever you're running. And if they get alerts coming in, they want to know that you are doing that alert. So send the email out, make sure everything is done. You don't want anything to be weaponized. Keep in mind, sometimes when you run software on your system, there is ways that hackers can get into that software and actually weaponize it. Okay, I'm not saying it happens all the time, or it happens with the software. We have seen it. So just be careful when you run it and you conduct security, that when you're done, you turn off that particular machine that's got that software running. And when your machine is back again and you do your work, and you've got your team and everybody's on go mode, then that is all done and set. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's run it. So if you install Atomic Red Canary, you're going to run invoke, and you're going to run invoke atomic test. Okay, then we're going to say T1003. Let's say, and we want to actually see if there's more details. Okay, so let's go into that, and let's say show me a breathe. Okay. So in this particular one, there's 2 ways we can do this. We can use GSC dump to gain information, or we can do credential dumping with NPP spy. Okay, I want to check if actually 005, if I'm not mistaken, 005 is a different version. I could be wrong, yeah. That's the show. Yeah. It's 3. Okay. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Let me say 3. Show details. Okay. So now we want to go and test the system. But before we even get there, okay, this is that little disclaimer I said. Make sure your system actually have the software to test it. So what you want to do is, you want to basically go there, and then you want to say show brief. Show brief is going to tell us 1 and 2. Okay. Now what you do is you go to the back over here, and you will then say little dash there, and you say test number 2 space enter. Okay, and then if you want to know what you're actually going to test, this you can say show details. It's going to say from the top there. Okay, so beginning test right on the top. The OS credential T0 is the credential dumping, and it says number 2, and it's going to say the test GUID, and this is what it's going to say description. Change provider order registry, key parameters, and creates key for the NSPy. After using a login, clear text password, saved in C, npp spy.txt, clean up, deletes the files, and reverse registry changes, and it's going to pull information in from the web. Okay. Then it's going to use the PowerShell. So this is a PowerShell that's going to execute it. And then it's going to run it in the destination folders. And you can actually see they're changing paths there. So it gives you a little bit of a clear way of what they're going to do. And then they're going to run a cleanup command afterwards. And then if that hack happens, you'll probably see it in this the c.nppy spy.txt. Okay. Right, so let's see. The output file is going to be in temp.dll. Okay, cool. Now, also what you want to do is you want to see if you've got actually the dependencies. So you want to then go into the back, and then you want to basically say this, and you want to say check prerequisites. And it's going to go and check, and it's going to say, okay, must be available in your local temp directory. Try installing it by get, so we don't have it. So it tells us they get, to try to get it by dash get pre. It's going to go, and it's going to actually, there we go. It goes and it downloads it, and let's run it again. There we go. So technically speaking, now this is all set up and ready for us to do the hacking. Okay. So now what we want to do is we say we're going to run number 2, and we say go for it. There it goes, and it's please log out, log back in. The text password from this account is going to be located in NXPy. Okay, so let's log out, and this will this machine log out. There we go, and then we log back in again. And that, okay. So then we go in here, we go into C drive, and there you go. Didn't work. So the file isn't there. Actually, what is that RPC settings? Maybe it's that file. Let's have a look. No. Okay, so the hack didn't work. Okay, because there is no file. So that's kind of how we can actually see, because it says here, please log in, log out back in again, and then it says on the bottom here, it's going to be an nppy.txt. So that didn't work. But why didn't it work? So let's go and actually have a look. It's all, well, but we have to go and have a look. Why didn't this work? Ah, there we go. Okay, so our EDR system has actually detected it, and it's basically killing it. Okay, so that's why it didn't work. So if we're going to go into automatic investigation, we will see it's actually running at the moment. So it's actually doing the investigation at the moment. Okay, declare log files. Okay, so hence it wasn't working. Okay, so it's running an investigation on this particular file, on the particular hack that we've done. So that means we actually detected it and we stopped it. Okay, so that is something that we want to see in our environment, right? In our incidents and stuff like that. So it can actually see there's some, there we go, suspicious file incident on the endpoint. Okay, so the good thing is we've stopped it. We stopped the hack from happening. So let's do a recap. We checked our windows were working. We then say, is simulation, we want to do a simulation hacking. Can it work in our environment? Did we do the due diligence to actually go and check that we install and run, for instance, Credential Guard, making sure that our system is prepped to stop it, like the blue team? And then number four, let's run the actual hack and see if we can stop it. Okay, if we saw an npp spy.txt file, obviously what we've run didn't detect it. Okay, and that's when it's actually there. Don't think it is sometimes a bad thing if it's actually npp spy.txt. What you need to find out is why you can't detect it. Okay, now we detected it and we stopped it. If that file was still there, we have to go back again and go check our security. Did we check the under layer? Did we check if the credential guard was enabled correctly? Or is the program or security program that we're currently running, our third-party program we're running, can it actually do that? Can it actually detect stuff like this? Okay, there's a lot of different versions of this actually that you can run. I just run this particular one, but you can run. I deliberately didn't want to run something like Mimikatz because almost everybody can detect Mimikatz. I wanted to run something a little bit differently. Okay, so guys, this is just one of the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Okay, there is literally hundreds and hundreds that you can go and test in a MITRE ATT&CK framework. Okay, and you can see exactly how a hack has been conducting. So if you want to follow a specific hack, for instance, doing a spear phishing email link, going through all the, try and do a blue team, red team exercise, I think there's a huge potential for simulation hacking and companies in the red team that can create a red team in a company that can actually do this. Okay, we don't always need to get a hacking company in to do it. You can actually do it internally if you do it correctly and you understand it correctly, and you follow, follow the guidelines and stuff like that. You can really do this, correctly. Be careful using Kali Linux. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why in a nutshell. Anything that you run with Kali Linux is open source. Okay, 1. 2, if it doesn't work in your production system and you actually test against that system, the chances of it breaking it or break that server or whatever you're testing is pretty big. Remember, it's trying to hack it, it's trying to grab information or creating a file process or something like that to gain access or doing something. Okay, it doesn't care if it's actually breaking a system or not. When you run something like Mimikatz, for instance, a lot of software will actually grab it, but it's kind of a straightforward way of, well, I say straightforward way, but you understand what I'm meaning, a straightforward way of doing it. If you run the Atomic Red Canary, for instance, there is ways that you can run in this, and there's obviously, you can get help, right? You can reach out to a team and say, hey guys, there's a big community. I've done X, Y, and Z, and what can I do to help? When you run Kali Linux, you completely basically on your own. And people are kind of asking me always, should I go and do my hacking, CH and all that kind of things like that to kind of run it? CH is not going to learn you how to hack. It just tells you what is hacking. You want to go a little bit deep, like 2 to 3 levels deeper in it. And at the end of the day, it comes down to experience. You can have all the certifications out in the world, but it comes down to experience and hours and hours and hours of testing and playing and see where it comes in. It's one thing to hack, it's another thing to protect. Okay, so this is what I think is what you can use this is definitely looking into simulation software. be careful what software you're using out there. There's a whole lot of software that is just like trying to sell you a service. Be careful for those. Reach out, talk to people, reach out to the community, reach out to myself if you want to on LinkedIn, Jacques van Zijl on LinkedIn, and I will guide you and see what I can help, obviously, if my time permits. Guys, my name is Jacques van Zijl. I'm the National Cyber Defense Specialist for Microsoft in the Canadian sub. It was an honor to do this event with you guys. I hope it was informative. You learned something. And, always try to detect, protect, and respond. Keep safe out there and have a good day. Cheers.